Awesome. What's going on, beautiful people? Nutritional wellness guy here, Chef D, and with the lovely, amazing Dr. Nancy Silva. Thank you for being here again. This is like what, three? I was talking to Dr. Dawson on the last episode. For you, this has to be like the third, fourth, maybe
Something
even
like
fifth.
that. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm not
because
sure. Maybe fourth, fifth.
yeah,
Yeah. I don't know. I'm not
yeah, 'cause
keeping
we did
track.
cholesterol health, we did sleep health,
Mm-hmm.
and this is obviously I'm telling you guys, this is blood pressure health today, which is a
Uh-huh.
oh well, I'm excited about this one. And I feel like we did one other one. I have to go back in my
We did
notes.
heart health. Heart
Heart
health.
health. That's
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
So we did heart health. Man,
Yeah.
and we have some treats for you all. Our next thing is thyroid health. No, we have
Oh.
brain health.
Oh yeah,
Brain
right.
health.
Brain health. You and I.
Yeah, so
Yes,
I'm
right.
pretty excited about Dr.
Yeah.
Dawson's thyroid health. So
Neat.
community, we're working. We are working to get you information, tools, and strategies to make sure your nutritional wellness journey is a successful one. There's no magic pills we're selling on here. There's no as seen on TV. There's no uh, and if you order in the next 20 minutes, you'll get a free can opener. It's none of that. Like
Mm,
we're emphasizing the intelligence of the body. We're emphasizing what strategy looks like, and we're emphasizing how being intentional about your nutrition and wellness journey goes
mhm.
a long way. All right,
Yeah.
so today is blood pressure health, opening monologue. Here we go. Welcome back to Coach's Corner. This is episode 26. This week, we're diving into a health focus that impacts nearly half of all adults in the United States: blood pressure. High
Mm,
blood pressure is often called the silent killer. Why? Because you can feel perfectly fine while your arteries, heart, and kidneys are taking serious damage behind the scenes.
yeah.
According to the CDC, 1 in 3 adults don't even know they have high blood pressure. And by that time, it shows up in symptoms and is often already advanced. But here's the good news: blood pressure is not fixed, it's feedback. And with the right daily practices, foods, and holistic strategies, many people can significantly reduce their risk and, in some cases, even lower or eliminate their need for medication under obviously medical guidance. Now, earlier this week, you guys know we talked about some of the key signs that your blood pressure may be creeping up. Frequent headaches and dizziness, swelling in the ankles, even shortness of breath with like activity. We also highlighted micro habits like deep breathing and swapping salt for herbs and spices, and even taking short walks after meals. Now, these small shifts, they add up, and over time can actually lead to change. Now, of course, we touched on foods. You guys know I'm a foodie. So we talked like beets and leafy greens and even berries, which are my favorites. And these support your heart and circulation naturally. Today, I'm honored to be joined by Dr. Nancy Silva, who brings a wealth of experience in cardiovascular health and naturopathic medicine and lifestyle. Together, we'll break down what your blood pressure readings really mean, explore what medications like ACE inhibitors and beta blockers actually do, and where lifestyle may be just as powerful. And we'll uncover practical steps you can take right now to protect your heart for the long run. Blood pressure health, how we do? We're here.
All right. I'm excited. It's an important one to talk about. Well, they're all important, but this is
Yeah.
really important.
And
Yes.
there and I did, so it's funny we named some of the other episodes you were on. I didn't even do the map. I didn't do it. The math led to the map. So we did heart and we did cholesterol health. Like, duh, it makes so much sense that we're
Yeah.
doing blood pressure health,
Yeah.
because if for those who are listening, welcome healthiest community. Uh, if you listen to any of those episodes, I hope you go back, check it out. They'll be at the end of this video. You'll see them as a way to get back to them. Those episodes are really great primers for this particular episode, because the heart, cholesterol, blood pressure, they all are in the same wheelhouse. So I'm excited, Nancy, to really get down to what blood pressure is. And maybe you can start us off. Why is it so critical as a marker for our overall health?
Yeah. Blood pressure is a major risk factor,
Mm,
major. risk factor for cardiovascular disease, for heart attack, right? And stroke. So it's actually the most significant risk factor for stroke. None of
Oh.
us want to stroke out, right? So obviously we want our blood pressure down. Um, it also does damage to the eyes and the kidneys. So basically, when you have extra tension in the vessels, it's going to affect those smaller vessels the most. And the small vessels of the eyes, the small vessels of the
Hmm.
kidneys, those small coronary arteries coming in, feeding our heart, and of course, the small vessels of the brain. So you can think of it in that way, that extra
Wow.
tension is slowly eroding at those small vessels, damaging them.
Wow. So, wow. And that usually doesn't show up until after time. It's almost like the body can take a tick, like it could take a licking. However, once it starts to show up, it's showing years of
Oh,
lifestyle,
yeah. Oh,
years of like it
definitely.
takes some time, right? Before things really start to show up.
Definitely. It takes time and it's best to catch it early, right? This is why every time you go to your physician's office, they take your blood pressure, right? The idea is
Hmm.
to catch it early. And if you don't go to the doctors, you should go and check your own, right? Go to Walmart and
Okay.
use the machine or buy one, they're cheap,
True.
and monitor it because it's definitely something you want to catch early instead of letting it go over time
Mm.
and causing that damage over time.
Good to know. So speaking of the doctor, I mean, blood pressure for again, this podcast is prevention and maintenance. So most times people, you go to the doctor, they'll, you feel the pressure on your arm, the cuff will go there. Sometimes they do your finger, they'll do your wrist, but old school's the arm. And it blows up and then two numbers pop up and they say, okay, great. Then you hop on the scale, they do your weight, okay, great. And then the doctor will be in to see you in a little bit. But there's no explanation on what's what. So can you tell us what is systolic and diastolic? Like what do those numbers mean?
Yeah, it's pretty simple, really. The systolic being the top and the diastolic being the bottom. And what they represent is the systolic is catching the tension on your arteries when your heart beats, right? So when it
Okay.
actually is doing that forceful contraction, that's the top number. And then in the relaxed phase, when your heart, there's obviously a beat and then a stop, beat, stop, right? And then in those in between parts, that's just the resting tension on your
Mm.
arteries, right? So you're catching both, the active contraction and the resting tension in the arteries.
So that's why when you're taking your blood pressure, it's good to be in a relaxed state because if you
Yeah.
if you're elevated or if you just finished fitness or you
Hmm.
just come up some stairs, because that's
Hmm.
another thing. Like when do you take your blood pressure? Is it in the
Yeah.
morning? Is it at night? But I think what rested state, huh?
Rested state, just
Okay.
basically you don't want to be agitated or worked up or anything like that, right? You want to be
Okay.
relaxed. Some people do have what they call a white coat syndrome. So you go to the doctors, it's high,
Nervous.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, nervous. Oh my God, and then you go home and it's normal, right? So in that case, it's a good idea just to monitor it at home because every time you go in, it's going to be high, right? So yeah, you need to be in that nice, relaxed state to get a true reading, right, of how you are normally, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
And what are the numbers saying? So, I mean, what is a healthy average? And is this average across genders and age groups, or is it, does it vary from one to the other when it comes
No.
to this magical number? I usually see 120 over 80, but
Yeah.
what is the magic number for everyone, or is that just the average we come up with over the years?
That is the number. 120 over 80 is considered normal, and
Okay.
something below that, right, would be normal. Unless it's terribly low, that would be abnormal, but there would be a reason for that and you'd be dizzy. But anyway, 120
Okay.
over 80 or lower is normal. And so the cutoff for stage one hypertension is 130 over 80 to 89. All right. That's what they
Okay.
consider the cutoff. It used to be that was the cutoff for what they called pre-hypertension. So kind of a gray area. And then they
Okay.
made the actual cutoff 140, but they
Okay.
changed that few years ago, several years ago, and now 130 is considered the cutoff. 130 over 80, between 80 and 89 is stage one
Okay.
hypertension. So at that point, either they'll treat you with medication, they being your doctor, right? Or they'll advise you on some diet and lifestyle things first. Depends
Okay.
on your doc, right?
Yep.
So yeah, and you definitely want to treat it once you get to this stage. Treat it either getting at root cause, why is it high, or
Hmm.
if you need to go on medication, need to go on medication. You definitely don't want to be walking around with high blood pressure for a long
Wow.
period of time, right? It's going to cause real
Some
problems for you.
issues. And in an episode I did, I think it was with Dr. Dawson. I can't remember what health focus we were talking about. He was sharing about the intelligence of the body. And you may be able to agree with this, that blood pressure being raised is a protective state of the body because the body's intelligent. So it's being raised for a reason. It's not supposed to stay raised, but it's in response to something that needs to happen in the body. So
Yeah,
it's good that you said that. Hey, it shouldn't stay elevated. There are times when blood pressure does need to get higher because it protects you from having a stroke or it protects you from having a heart attack because it's adjusting its pressure. It's doing adjustments to meet the environment or the situation you're in. Whether you're at the
yeah.
gym, whether you're in a scary situation,
Mm,
whatever the case may be, your
yeah,
adrenaline's through the roof. Is
yeah.
that what about that? Like that is that an importance on why to take your blood pressure outside of just going to the doctor's office is a good idea?
Yeah. Yeah, there is a piece where blood pressure is in response to something and it's a necessary thing. Let's say, like you said, something scary, right? You're stressed
A
out.
bear, yeah,
Tigers,
like a
yeah,
the
right, exactly.
caveman, our
It's going to
ancestors,
chase
like we
you.
always
Right,
say.
right. Exactly. Exactly. So epinephrine, adrenaline rises, blood pressure increases, right? Heart rate increases. And that's
Hmm.
just so that you can respond to that certain situation. Your muscles are ready, your blood is being pumped everywhere so that
Yes.
you can respond, right? And so that would be normal. And then normally it would go down, right?
Hmm.
Over, when you don't need to run from the bear anymore, right?
Yes.
And that would be one piece. And then there's like dysregulation of things, right? So
Mm.
we're chronically stressed out, right? And so if you're chronically stressed and you're chronically having elevated stress hormones, and then that could be a root cause of high blood pressure. And then in that sense, it's a normal thing being dysregulated, right? And there's also just what I like to think about, of course, root cause um, would be dysregulation of the way we live in general now, right? As
Yes.
modern humans, right? So a
Yes,
lot
indeed.
of high blood pressure cases, hypertension, right, are
Yeah.
related to dysregulation of our systems, what we're doing to our systems, right?
Yes.
Throwing that off. And I mean, I can go into all the things there if you want me to go right into that. But
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
okay.
so because yeah, let's do it. Let's do it
Yeah,
because I
yeah,
feel
yeah.
like
It's really important.
that's the crux of this
Yes.
conversation.
Yes.
We don't want to demonize people on the medication, but
No.
the highlight is to focus on like the root cause.
Yeah.
So you could take blood pressure medication until you meet your maker.
Yeah.
However, you're still, who wouldn't want to know why I have high blood pressure? Who
Yeah.
wouldn't want to know how to correct blood pressure without the
Right.
reliance of medication? So please, yes, let's
Yeah.
go down that road.
Absolutely. And, first of all, there are some people out there who need medication. They've got some kind of genetic predisposition, and that's it, right? So
Okay.
take your medicine, save your head, save your heart,
Yes.
do it, right? Okay. But there's plenty of people out there who have a root cause situation they could deal with and actually
Mm,
get rid of medication. Now, if you have high blood pressure today, you go in, it's been documented over time, I say go for the meds right away, get it down, right? But
gotcha.
then look at the root cause situation, right?
Great
And
point.
say,
Great point.
well, yeah, okay, so am I working with all these things that might actually be the cause and I don't actually need medication?
Mm,
So a big uh, cause of hypertension today in the United States is being overweight. So a huge percentage of the cases today are related to carrying extra weight. So considering about 70% of Americans are overweight today, it's very likely that you being someone out there with high blood pressure, you may fall into that picture. So you've got to look
yeah.
at that piece. That may be the root cause.
Yeah.
Um, sedentary lifestyle, another major risk factor for high blood pressure. So we
Wow.
are, talking about dysregulation, right? I mean, we are really made to
Yeah,
move, right?
we
Humans
are.
are, we're designed to move, we're designed to eat in a certain way, and all that has been thrown off with the more modern environment. And we have to always think about that. Am I living in a sort of more of a natural state or not a natural state and not working
Mm.
with my
Wow.
body's ways, right? So moving is something we need to do for our blood pressure and many other reasons, which we've talked about. Oh yeah, we did muscle health episode. That was a
Yeah,
good one.
that's right.
Yeah, we already talked about the stress piece, right? So trying to get a hold of that modern lifestyle stress and doing stress reduction. But also a really big one here is the diet. So, I think we've all heard about salt being a problem for blood pressure, right? So
Yeah.
when you take in a lot of salt, especially salt sensitive people, it can increase your blood pressure. But a big part of the problem really, it goes beyond salt. It has to do with that potassium intake, right?
Yes, the
So,
balance.
yeah, normally the balance would be in a normal, natural human,
Yeah.
right? Eating a lot of plant foods, okay? Then, and no ultra processed foods, right? Would be that we'd be taking in a lot of plant matter, which is very high in potassium, and very
Hmm.
little salt in comparison, right? And so that has a huge impact on blood pressure. It has a huge impact on the blood vessels. So, and it's linked to hypertension. This is a clear link
Wow.
between sodium and potassium intake imbalance. So, fruits and vegetables, right? Primarily vegetables,
Hmm.
right? And getting rid of the processed foods, which are typically very high in sodium, will bring you
Yep.
back into that balance, a normal balance that the human body is supposed to be in to
Wow.
hopefully bring your blood pressure back to normal. And another piece that I want to talk about, and whenever I can beat up on sugar, I'm there. Okay,
There we
so
go. Yep.
ah,
Yes.
hate sugar. Oh
Listen,
God,
I get
just
it.
kill me. Yeah. All right. So fructose, right? And this is an
Hmm.
interesting piece. Fructose, which is added to a lot of processed foods, right, in the form of high fructose corn syrup, right?
That's correct. Yep.
So you find it all over the place in drinks, in processed foods, whatever. And it does an interesting thing. You take that in, and it's converted in the liver to uric acid.
Yep.
And uric acid is high uric acid levels is linked to hypertension. So it blocks that nitric oxide production in the blood vessels. And nitric
Wow.
oxide is important for relaxing the blood vessels. Yeah, so it's an interesting piece that you don't hear
Wow.
much about at all,
Yeah.
right? Like hardly ever. A big one on this is Dr. Lustig. I love Dr. Lustig. He really tries to get the word out about fructose and sugar and the dangers.
Yeah.
But yeah, so this is an interesting piece of a little hidden potential cause for hypertension is that fructose intake related to increase in uric acid levels.
Yeah, because we rarely hear the connection of sugar and blood pressure or sugar
Yeah,
and heart.
right.
Sugar is usually only for sugar's usually, I mean, brain sugar usually affects kidneys, liver, like it's never really heart. No one connects, I eat
Yeah.
sweet, so I should be okay. I don't use a lot of salt, so I don't understand why my blood pressure is that high. I hear
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people say that, like,
Yeah.
I don't even do that much salt. I don't understand, not
Mm-hmm.
understanding that it's just an imbalance. And without leafy greens, without potassium rich foods,
Mm-hmm.
there's no balance. There's the cells, there's
Mm-hmm.
no retention, there's no,
Mm-hmm.
there's a life cycle. They're not properly recycling. There's oxidative stress in the body, which are
Mm-hmm.
robbing, free radicals are robbing the healthy cells. And you
Mm-hmm.
may be doing some of the things right. However, with while you're eating ultra processed foods and not working out, what's happening is you're not supporting the engine to run the car. You're
Yep.
just not giving it good gas. Wow.
Yep.
So
Right.
about the processed foods and ultra processed foods, do you believe that also may be affecting kids now too, with actually starting to have hypertension? We never talked about kids with hypertension. We never talked about kids with diabetes unless it was like type 1. There's even type 1.5 now. But What do you think that's also an issue that maybe parents are not catching because of the tricky marketing on the box, like low fat and all natural? Like, can you speak on that? Like the trickery of these ultra processed packages?
Oh
That was a lot.
yeah, really, a friend of mine said he used to be overweight and he had
Okay.
hypertension. Okay.
Mm,
And and his doctor just immediately wrote him a prescription. And he turned to the doctor after he was handed the prescription. And he said, well, if I lost the weight, would that help? And the doctor said yes. And he was like, huh, okay. So you often don't even, and not to, get on MDs. They're not trained in this way.
hmm.
Okay. They're trained in the pharmaceutical, you know, way. But anyway, so he decided that he would stop eating anything out of a box.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's a
he
great
switched
challenge.
exactly, and he would only eat whole foods, right? And
Hmm.
things that were low on the glycemic index, so nothing that would
Okay.
raise his blood sugar levels dramatically, right? And he lost 80 pounds and the blood pressure went away. No more medication. So, I'm just saying this as an example to the box and labels and all that. Processed food is processed food. It's
Yeah.
typically stripped of nutrients. It's refined, and there's added sugars, added
Yeah.
fructose, added salt, and all these things to make it highly palatable, right? And
Yeah. Hmm.
and also to trigger the reward system of the brain, right? So that you'll
Wow.
continue to want it, to eat it, to buy it, right? And so, yeah, I say, you know, the box is sure they'll say something like low fat. Does it matter? No, I mean, if you really still need to buy something out of the box, you could try to look for, does it have added sugars? How much added
Yeah.
sugar?
Hmm.
You'll be shocked sometimes at how much added sugars in these things.
Yeah.
How much sodium does it have and all that? But ultimately, yeah, the box, it's the food industry. They want you to
Yeah.
buy and they will say things that are going to make you think that it's okay. Oh
Yeah.
gosh, I had a friend just the other day who's overweight and he's dealing with type 2 diabetes and he was eating skinny pop. And then he asked me, is it okay? Like
That's yeah.
popcorn.
Okay. Now I know what that is. Yeah.
No, popcorn's like, corn in itself is very fattening. I mean, this is what they feed, cattle and chicken
Livestock.
and
Yeah.
stuff, right? Livestock, I mean,
Yeah.
and he's like, oh, so they're lying and saying it's skinny pop. He's like, I believed it, Oh, so anyway, it just, yeah,
And it sucks. It sucks that it's
yeah,
legal. You know what I mean? And
yeah,
and
yeah.
and I feel like I won't go too far into this, but I feel like this is why a big shakeup is needed in our human health services department. I feel like HHS and a lot of those other places. I believe there needs to be a little shakeup.
Oh, yeah.
Not
The food
you know
industry is out of control. Yeah.
yeah, I feel
Uh-huh.
like the money has been doing more talking than the actual results and
Mm-hmm.
than the actual people. And
Mm-hmm.
it's just what it is. You can look it
Mm-hmm.
up, you can follow the money, and you can see that
Mm-hmm.
this is a very profitable area of just our economy. And it just sucks that like your friend these marketing ads, I mean, we've been to school, we've coached, we trained, and they're even tricky. They're very convincing,
Oh,
very
yeah.
misleading, but they're very convincing. And I'll look at something, and I know better now, but I'll look at it and I say, "Wow, this is a great product." Just because of the packaging, it looks clean and simple. But you
Mm-hmm.
turn it over, and again, community, don't just be fooled by looking at the nutrition label because you'll see zero trans fat, zero
Mm-hmm.
saturated fat. You'll see 0% cholesterol, 0% sugars. Still look at the label because that's giving you per serving size. And
Mm-hmm.
often that's their loophole. What's the lowest serving size that I can put sometimes to
Yeah.
represent the front of the box? Because they always
Yeah.
say the front of the box lies, the back of the box tells the truth. But you got to understand the same
Yeah, that's
people who are
good.
funding the front of the box, they
Uh-huh.
also are helping to fund the back of the box. So
Uh,
that nutrition label part, it is a great place to look for. Obviously, you want to look at that first, but then you also want to look at the ingredient list because two things can be true. There could be zero, you got to think like, okay, it says 0% sugar, but then you see a sugar substitute or something sugary in the ingredient list. Something has to tell. My camera does this weird little.
Yeah. No,
uh,
it's kind of
it,
cool. It's all right.
it shows my grandparents' old school dresser. I love it.
Oh, I
This is
didn't
like a
see
china
that.
cap. It says a china cabinet behind me with the little whiteboard. I love it. So this is like my little
Okay.
podcast corner when grandpa's upstairs. But no, seriously, the labels, they're getting very creative. And then I'm even starting to see some research that in very trace amounts, certain things don't have to even be on the label because they're
Oh, right.
trace
Mm-hmm.
amounts. And
Mm-hmm.
they're not considered a food. They're
Mm-hmm.
considered something else. And it
Mm-hmm.
gets tricky. So what the great Dr. Nancy Silva is saying, as best as possible, just stay away from packaged products. As best
Yeah.
as possible. We're not saying get rid of all of
Right.
them, but as best as possible, find whole ingredients and then put it together yourself.
Yeah.
Or find reputable companies that are going to share on the back. There's a lot of great companies out there that
Mm-hmm.
they're doing the right thing. They're doing it right. You can look on the back, and even if there are more than five, I usually try to say stay under five ingredients. Seven is the most, but if you're looking at them and if their ingredient list is listing like different like obviously Greek yogurt is going to have a couple of ingredients, more than seven sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Not all, not my Greek yogurt, but I can see mine just has the two. But I can see some people having more, but they're going to list out the bacterias, they're going to list out the cultures that's inside
Yeah.
of it. They're going to list like the cashew. Don't be fooled if you see an ingredient with parentheses. Sometimes that is counting just as the one ingredient, unless it's something like a box cake and it has a dried milk in there, and then it has like 1,000 ingredients with the dried milk. You
Yeah.
got to understand these companies, and it's kind of weird because it's like a enigma. They want you to keep buying, but also these ultra processed snacks are lasting quite some time on the shelf.
Right.
I actually started noticing this here at my grandpa's house. I have some family members who loves to buy him ultra processed snacks as little reward treats.
Mm.
The little Debbie's and the tasty cakes.
Oh,
And I remember growing up, those things like a Twinkie would last forever. Like
yeah.
they could just sit on the Wonder Bread cake snacks. It lasts forever. However, I noticed a trend that the expiration dates aren't lasting forever. So they're changing
Huh.
the expiration dates to shorter expiration dates
Oh, to get you to buy
to
more.
get you to buy
'Cause-
more. But what I
Oh,
noticed is that the products still last. So there's been some
oh,
boxes here that he's had, and I said, I'm just curious.
mm,
And it's like 3 months past the expiration date, and
yeah,
the integrity looks the same as the other one
yeah,
that was purchased.
uh,
And
very interesting.
don't tell my family, but usually after they leave, that's when they come to visit. I throw it all away in the garbage
Yeah,
anyway. I don't give it to grandpa.
good for you.
But
Good for
yeah,
you.
no, but
Yeah.
anywho, I kept one or two
I
just to kind of
support that.
see. Yeah, oh, for sure. Like, especially a dementia person, and we're getting back on track. What we're talking about community is supporting a lifestyle because again, when you're eating these ultra processed foods, when you're not working out, what's happening is you're putting your body in a state of shock that is not designed for. So, in
Mm,
other words, when you do try to do the right thing, like let's say someone was like, you know what, I'm going to eat more vegetables and I'm going to start taking a walk after I eat. Those are great changes. However, if you're still eating ultra processed foods or processed foods, if you're only just doing a walk, if you're not doing any muscle training or resistance training, what ends up happening is your efforts, they don't get maximized. You don't get to really see the benefits of your sacrifice and efforts.
yeah.
And it's just a
Hmm.
shame. All right, I got
That's
another
true.
question for you.
Okay.
Can you explain how medications like ACE inhibitors and beta blocks work and what their limitations are? So, like you said, if someone just like, oh God, my blood pressure is through the roof, my doctor prescribed this. I need to take it. I don't want to stay on it for long, but I want to take it.
Yeah.
What is it doing? How does it get the blood pressure lower?
Yeah.
And yeah, just yeah, speak on that. I'll leave it at that. Yeah.
Well, ACE inhibitors, they work by blocking the production of angiotensin 2. So
Okay.
there's this whole
Hmm.
mechanism that happens in the body that to maintain a blood pressure, right? To maintain a
Okay.
certain blood pressure in your body, and you need some, right? But if they block a part of that pathway, and
Okay.
block the production of angiotensin 2, then you get a relaxing of the vessels. So this
Okay.
works for someone who has high blood pressure. It'll just relax it and bring it back more to a normal state, right? And then beta blockers are interesting. Beta blockers, they block epinephrine and norepinephrine. So those adrenaline,
The
which is a
adrenal
normal
glands.
part.
Yeah.
Yeah. So normal part of the system, causing a little bit of vasoconstriction. But when there's too much, you can block those, and that will relax the vessels because they cause vasoconstriction, constriction of the vessels. So block them,
Hmm.
you relax the vessels. It also, the beta blockers reduce heart rate. So you reduce heart rate, then you reduce some of that cardiac output, which will decrease blood pressure. They can decrease
Wow.
some of the contractile force too. So some of that heavy force of contraction. Yeah.
It seems so. What's the concern of just being on that long term? It almost seems like it's manipulating the natural order of the body. Like, what is the concern of being on that for long term?
You
And
know,
this is more so for the people who are not predisposed, like someone who can, make the changes with a lifestyle change.
That's a good question. So any kind of medication, you're asking your body to deal with that. So there's
Okay.
benefits and drawbacks, right? So the body has to work with that. And a lot of times, let's say, first thing that comes to my mind, of course, I always think about nutrition. There's nutrition depletion. And,
Okay.
I can't remember off the top of my head which nutrients are depleted from those two. But anyway, there is nutrient depletion, certain micronutrients. So over time, and unfortunately, uh, the vast majority of doctors aren't even aware of, nutrient depletion and medications,
Mm,
right? So this is something you've got to find out for yourself. I think I mentioned this, I think the last time we were together. There's a site called MyTavin,
yep.
mytavin.com.
Mm,
It's free. And
yep.
you can go in there, put your medication in, and see which nutrients are depleted. So, and then you can look at that
Wow.
and see what are the long-term effects of depletion of this nutrient, and what can I do if I need to stay on this medication. I mean, can I get off it, not even have to worry about it? Or if I have to stay on it, then what can I do? Maybe supplement or eat foods that are rich in these certain nutrients or something like that. But
Good
the
point.
nutrient depletion could leave you with some other clinical outcome. You know what I'm saying? So all these things are always connected, and no one connects
Mm,
the dots for you, unfortunately. So let's say you're on, I'm going to switch it up to on a proton pump inhibitor. A lot of people are on those to decrease acid in their stomach.
yep.
Um, and those can deplete B12. Well, if you have a depletion of B12 over time, you can end up with a peripheral neuropathy. All right. So, a lot of people have peripheral neuropathy. It's not
What is
something you
that?
want.
I've heard of
Well,
it before. Is it
yeah,
nerve? If it's stimuli,
nerve
delay or
damage.
something?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's nerve damage, and it typically shows up in the feet first, but you might get numbness, tingling in the hands as well.
Oh,
So the feet and the
wow.
hands. Now, initially a light numbness, tingling,
Mm,
eventually a real numbness, and eventually pain.
okay.
So, I've got a friend who has this, who happens to have been on PPIs for many years. Now,
Wow.
are they connected for sure? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. But anyway, now he can barely feel his feet. He said when he walks around, he feels like he's walking on stumps. And now he's starting to get pain. So now, granted, the guy, he's a trooper. He's out there at the gym. He's one of my gym buddies. He's working out. He's
Okay.
great. Okay. But is you got to think about these things that are the dots are not connected for you. So there you are depleting these certain nutrients, and later on down the road, now I have this, now I have that, and you or your doctor is not, you're not going to draw it back to that unless you
Nope.
happen to be really keen on that. So, so you're always
Wow.
taking a risk, right?
Mm,
Whenever, and now if you need it, if it outweighs, right? You you need it, you need it. You don't want to stroke out, right? So
yeah.
do what you
Wow.
can to deal with the other pieces. But yeah. Always a
Wow,
risk when you take
you
medication.
you said something. I it just shook me a little bit because you say these in a couple of the other episodes. You have to do your work. You have to connect your dots. You have to do it because no one's going to do it for you. 20 years from now, you may not have your same doctor. You may not be in the same city, same state, same town, and their their lack of doing the work for you, which they're really not supposed to, shows up in your body years down the road.
Yeah.
And if you have a very unintentional lifestyle where you just get up and go, you don't regulate stress, you eat however you eat, you really don't work out much, then you don't know what to point to, which makes it even harder to blame your doctor. The doctor's not going to get blamed. There's no court case for that. There's no malpractice. There's no
Mm.
negligence because your lifestyle is so unintentional, and you can't blame anybody. You can't say, well, the doctor gave me this and now I'm calcium and iron deficient. So now I have brittle bones. I keep having injury. I'm injury prone. Now my joints are at a disadvantage. So now when I want to go for walks, when I want to go work out, when I want to go play with the kids or the grandkids, when I go walk
Yeah.
the dog, when it's cold outside, I'm aching. When I get up in the morning, I'm aching. I can't understand what's going on. We're trying to tell you what's going on, that just because you're prescribed something doesn't mean it's good for everything that is everything in the body. It might just be prescribed for one particular thing. I mean, it might just be purpose for one particular thing. So obviously, to you said it, the ACE, to lower blood pressure. There's probably five other things it may not be advantageous towards,
Right.
and you doing it long term. She said mytavern.com. Start looking this up. You have AI, you have Chat GPT, you have Google, you have naturopaths, you have other trusted medical professionals. Start asking the questions. If I do this long term, what's going to happen? I know for me, I was prescribed and still is prescribed a meprazole. They said it's uncurable. My acid is uncurable. It happened from being
Mm.
in Iraq's burn pits and all this other stuff. I still have to do the homework. I still have to figure out, okay, maybe instead of taking this forever, maybe I change out my diet. Because
Mm.
like we had a gut episode on here, and most times it's not you have too much acid. Really, you originally don't have enough acid. So you're taking something to stop, which is already a issue, and it's causing more issues. It was messing up my esophagus area with the flap. It was starting to cause other issues, and if you're not careful, you can get a hernia. You can get so many other complications, all because we're not taking the time to do the work. And that's what I just got from you. Do the work. Because like your friend who goes to the gym, thank God he has a friend like you to say, "Hey, listen, this doesn't sound right." Maybe sometimes they take advantage of your friendship in a good way. Like, "Hey, I'm on
Ah,
this. How do I not be on this for life?" And then
yeah.
that's where we come in.
Yeah. He yeah, I just got him on a better B12. He was taking a, you know, what is it? Cyanocobalamin, which isn't well absorbed. You want to go with the methylcobalamin. Is he can't seem to get off his PPIs, and I'm not working with him directly to try to make that happen. I'm
Yeah.
just giving him friendly advice because he was taking the wrong B12, to keep his B12 levels up, but he's
Yep.
already got the damage.
Yeah.
But yeah, but other things can happen with B12 deficiency. But yeah, so
Mm.
PPIs are tricky. Some people can get themselves off, and some people can't. But sometimes it is related to the way a person is eating, right?
Yes.
Big time, and sometimes
Yes.
not. So one has to just look into all that. Am I eating
Yeah.
the right kinds of foods? Am I doing the right kinds of things? Maybe there's a gastritis in there? Am I doing the right things to heal the gastritis and get at that
Yes.
root cause? And sometimes there's other odd root causes actually for gastric reflux like that. So, did I look at all angles?
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Allergy tests too. I feel like that's something that
Mm,
people don't really think about because there
hmm
are some healthy foods out there, whole foods, that
Hmm.
may agree with you better than they agree with me.
Yeah.
Maybe the enzyme in pineapples don't agree with me as it
Hmm.
may agree with you.
Yeah.
Maybe whatever the components are, the lycopene in tomatoes or whatever that works doesn't agree with me like it would agree with
Right.
you. And
Yeah.
sometimes these things don't show up for 2 days later, and you
Yeah.
can't pinpoint what it is because you've had Taco Bell, you had Doritos, you had a salad, you had
Right.
Chick-fil-A, you had
That's right.
a Mexican bowl. So you had so
Yeah.
many things. It's hard to pinpoint what caused it, and you'll never know it was the pineapples and the smoothie
Yeah.
that you ordered. So I think
Yeah.
also doing an allergy test doesn't hurt.
Yeah, and you could even do it the old-fashioned way. It's considered a gold standard is to do a wash diet, right?
Okay.
So do a bland food diet. You can look this up. I forget what it's all included in the bland food diet, but you do a bland diet for 2 weeks, and then you
Okay.
reintroduce one thing at a time to see what happens,
Hmm.
right?
Okay.
So that's one way to do it. It's a really great way, and you don't have to go get testing. And it's easy to look that up to figure out how to do that. Yeah, and yeah, I mean, I personally have GERD as well, but I just have to not
Yeah.
eat the wrong things, and that's
Yeah.
it, you know?
That's it.
So yeah, and that's it. But it depends, right? My friend
Hmm.
who's on the PPIs who now has neuropathy, sadly, he said he's tried and nothing seems to work for him. So yeah. But
When you're
anyway,
at that point, I mean, at that point, when and a community hear us when we say this, we're about to close out on this note. That's why we're really big on prevention and maintenance. That's what this is about, prevention and maintenance. Obviously, we're
mhm,
not here to cure, treat, diagnose anything that's happening in your blood pressure journey. We want you to get to a point where we give you some aha moments where you're like, hey, I never thought about that. I thought blood pressure was just these two numbers, and I went about my day, and that's that. I didn't realize that what I ate, I didn't realize that my lack of activity was affecting that. I didn't realize that having unprocessed stress and mental strain contributes to that. I did not realize that drinking and smoking contributes to, my blood pressure
that
numbers
too, yes,
being bad.
that's
Um,
another one, right?
100%. So
Mm,
sometimes we're just trying to say that just because there may not be a present issue that you see, it doesn't mean that it's not brewing underneath the surface. And
mm,
hopefully this episode just gave you some credence, some importance to know that blood pressure is not just a number they take at at your checkup, your annual checkup, or when you're going to the ER. If they're not, just checking it, and that's that. That number is a really critical marker for so many things that's happening with your health, and it should not. Because I know some people who only get their blood pressure checked. I was one of those just
mm.
during your annual checkout, just once a year,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
even then, the number could not be a great representation of what's actually happening. You can either have white coat syndrome, which we already talked about anxiety, you're nervous already. You could have been in a fasted state or whatever the case may be. Maybe you didn't have time to eat the last day and a half or the last meal. It's not always a true representation. Even labs, sometimes I feel like, a 12-hour fast or 8-hour fast, sometimes to me, it's just not a long enough fast for blood work. But that's a whole nother situation because what it really should be, I don't think many Americans are going to fast for 24 hours to get a reading and do lab work. So they got to do what they can do. But I just want you all to understand that what Nancy is saying today is understand before you get this is my takeaway, Nancy, and I want you to kind of bring us home. My takeaways from this as a fan of yours and just also a member of this podcast, just looking on, I learned today that if there's an issue with blood pressure right away, if you need your medication, get on your medication. Don't be ashamed of your medication. It does serve a purpose, and you rather get it regulated than try to be this holy whole health renegade and mess around and get a stroke, because now all of a sudden your blood pressure is elevated, and now you want to go on a juice diet or you want to be all vegan. Those are great. But sometimes you got to put the fire out before rebuilding the house. So I feel like don't be ashamed of medication is something I got from you. They can help. Don't be reliant on the medication though. There's still things you need to do to help with your diet. And before starting to buy any supplements or any, of these miracle drugs that they're promoting over the counter, just start by saying what I'm not going to eat. I'm going to try to stay away from boxed foods. I'm going to get away from white sugar, which makes no sense in this day and age. That is still a thing in our country, but it still is. But I'm going to get away from sugar and added sugars. I'm going to be monitoring my salt intake. I'm going to also make sure I get a little more active. I'm going to do some strength training because it's just not enough to walk and do cardio. I need to also develop muscle because muscle is going to also help with blood pressure support and a lot of other health focuses in the body. That's what I got from you so far. And then I also learned from you today that it's going to be important to look at whole foods and to have a better relationship with whole foods because that's going to be another thing that's going to allow for me to regulate the body and get it back at that homeostasis. Now, if I'm in a place where I'm trying to figure out what whole food works, or if I have an allergy, I'm going to do a bland diet. Some people used to do FODMAP and stuff like that. I'm just going to do a bland diet where I stick with the basics. It's online, you can find it, or you could do a whole diet, or you could do a raw diet. There's things you could do where you take out a bulk of the things and you start with small stuff and reintroduce before I do an allergy test. If I have the money and the time, I'll just do an allergy test. And I think, yeah, that's I got a lot. I got a lot today.
Good. Good. I like it. It's an important topic and yeah, get at root cause. Look at the big picture, see what you can do. Weight is often the big one, right? You can
Wait,
actually
yeah.
get quite a bit of a drop in blood pressure from losing weight if you have excess weight. Yeah, diet, veggies, high potassium foods, right?
Mm,
And processed foods, say no.
processed meats, yeah. Try to stay
Processed
away.
meats, foods, all that,
Yeah,
exercise. Yeah, I mean, it's the basics, right?
yeah.
But understanding the basics, I think that's what really helps, like knowing why that raises your blood
Why that's going to
pressure.
cause it? Like, yeah, why? Yeah, someone was saying why does processed meats? Why is that such an issue? Nitrates. There's things that they're doing to preserve the meat and cure the meat, and for that shelf life, that's going inside of you. That's raising. That's off balancing the potassium sodium ratio now, and
Yeah.
these meats are, yeah, don't get me started with hot dogs and pepperonis and salamis and
Uh,
deli meats, like
yeah.
all of that meat that has been broken down and reformed is some of the most trickiest meat out there. And you
Mm-hmm.
just got to be careful. You just got to be careful. Some last words from you, please, on the subject. If someone, I mean, today was diagnosed with blood pressure this week, what's the first steps they should take? And can you close us off on just some motivation when it comes to just having a better lifestyle and just locking in for um for just a better version of yourself.
Oh gosh. Get excited about whole foods.
Hmm.
Go back to uh your roots, right?
Yeah.
How you're supposed to eat as a human being and get excited about it, you know, eating real food
Yes.
and understand the impact of the food industry and that they really just want to addict your brain. It's exactly how those foods are designed and
Mhm.
keep you hooked. So get
Yep.
mad about that and get excited about the other. That'll put
Hey.
it all back together, right? It'll bring
Yes.
everything back in.
I like that. That's right. Just I'm gonna say, just get pissed off. That's right. Just
Yeah, I was gonna
be
say pissed
offended.
off and then I didn't.
Yeah, yeah. I felt that.
Yeah,
Listen,
be
we've been
offended.
doing this so often. I just get offended. Be offended. We
Yeah,
should be very offended. And
I
we're
like
in
that.
one of the most advanced countries. We're in one of the most amazing countries out there. And I say that in a patriotic way. Serving this country has been an honor. Um, we deserve more when it comes to the foods that we are being sold.
Hmm.
Other countries put us to shame
Hmm.
because they're not putting, and not all of them, but the general consensus of other countries compared to us is that it really is people over profit.
Hmm.
And I'm excited that it seems like our country's starting to turn a chapter and maybe
Hmm.
starting to head in the right direction on understanding that,
Hmm.
dyes and processed foods and all these
Hmm.
other things are really not good. I was even looking at an executive order that was just done, to bring, they're going. I'm gonna talk about this on my show, Wellness Wednesday. Their executive order was put out to now investigate ads of these medicines, because back in the 80s, early 90s, they were allowed to abbreviate certain side effects. They only had to list the major ones, and then after that, they were allowed to only list a few side effects, and then the rest was in a separate place, like you have to go online or you have to read through all 200 pages of documents. So now there's an investigation put out there to from the FDA to not do some cease and desist letters, of these companies that's been getting away. Mind you, they've made billions already, but that's
Yeah,
fine. We're now turning a leaf, and it's up to us to take care of us and get on the track for us.
I like that. I think that those ads give people a different idea of
Ugh.
what they can do. You know what I mean? Like, oh, okay,
You
there's a
got happy
pill. I
people
don't
on the
have to worry about it.
swing. Yeah, you got them in
Yeah, I don't have to
canoeing in the
worry
boat.
about it. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't have to worry. There's pills available for this and everything's cool, or, and it's just not the case as we were talking about before. There's a lot of potential side effects and other conditions that can come up down the road.
Hmm.
And, really, you want to look
Yeah.
at, can I correct this situation instead? Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
This has been another great ride. I appreciate you. I hope that they got value like I got value. Blood pressure is very, very important. Like, we can't stress it enough that it's something that I wish this episode puts it into the hearts and minds of the listeners, that invest in a machine,
Yeah.
understand your numbers, know what your average is, because
Hmm.
that can also help you determine if you're going in one direction or the other. look
Hmm.
at Take it this week, and then see what it's like if you stayed away from box processed foods, and then check it at the end of the week. See what
Hmm.
happens if you did half of your medication and ate right. You do it at home. Don't wait 6 months or a year when the doctors are giving you what you should be doing. Maybe once a week, maybe other week. That they're not expensive now. You can get a little monitor, or you can get a little machine, and you start doing it on your own. Start doing the work and monitoring, because it's going to be what your average is. Because maybe you are 128 over 40, and maybe that's your average, and then you go down because you started doing the right thing. So just put the control back in your hands. That's all we're really trying to
Yeah,
tell them.
I like it.
All right. Hey, and remember, health is wealth, and we're just here to make sure y'all getting paid. Until next time, yum on. Thank you so much for this. I appreciate you, and I'll see you on the next round.
Yeah, thank you. It's good. See you
Bye
next time.
bye.